so excited today to cover this testimony from a family of 5 that left Florida for Tanzania about 7 months ago.
Yes. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for allowing the Most High to use you guys to come on here and share your testimony, because a lot of people really need to hear, hey, what's happening now is still happening, and I'm glad that you guys can join us today. So, if you don't mind, guys, do you want to introduce yourselves and let the people know who you are? Let them know where you're from, um, things like that. Mhm. Okay. Yeah.
So we can just, be guided by the Most High, be together, like I said, as a cohesive unit, and see what's in store, in the future for us. So, that just is just a small part of our testimony.
Yes.
Yeah. So, just like he said, one of the big things for us, we do have 3 daughters that are teenagers, pretty much. The youngest is 12, and the oldest is 17, and we have a 14-year-old. And so, one of the great things that we wanted to show them is that since 2020, there has been a lot of waking up, and there has been a lot of changes, in their lives and in our lives, as we come into knowledge of certain things, we begin to change, we begin to eliminate things, we begin to change how we're living our lives. So there's been a lot of change. And one thing about this change, which is the biggest change for our family, is just letting them know and understand that we cannot be constrained by what society wants for us. Like, we are a people that has to be able and ready to do what we need to do when we need to do it. And we cannot let other people's opinions and constraints and their desires stop.
Laws,
Yeah,
any of that.
we can't let those things stop us from what we know we need to do. And sometimes that's an isolated place. It's an isolated place. And just with teenagers, teaching them and showing them that, listen, what society has for you as far as what they say is successful, that doesn't have to be what we say is successful. We teach you, what success is according to what the scriptures say, to be quite honest. And so it's a lot of breaking away of a lot of things and a lot of oppressions of the mind and thoughts of the mind of just what we need to do with our lives. And that's why the name of our channel is Be Limitless, because we're not going to allow anybody to put limits on us and to have us living a life of oppression just because that's what we always knew. No, we have to break out of that. So Yeah.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. And so,
Yeah.
did you guys, because sometimes people say like they always thought of traveling abroad, or sometimes we hear people say, no, they never thought of it, but then 2019, 2020 came. Were you guys in the boat of people that always dreamed of going abroad, or was it something that was kind of new when 2019, 2020 came around?
Well, um when my husband, I went to school at Howard University, HU. Anyway, so he came down to DC and we were there for probably about 10 years or so. And we came back to Syracuse, New York, and we always knew that we didn't want to stay in Syracuse. I always knew that I didn't want to stay in
Okay.
Syracuse. Of course, we want to travel, just normally travel and see sights and see things. But I never thought that I would move my family and live outside of the United States. It was never a thought for me until 2020. Um, and
Wow.
it just became you know attainable, or a thought that I would actually begin entertaining. But we always knew that we didn't want to stay where we grew up. We knew that we wanted to travel. I just didn't know it was going to be like on that type of level.
My story is a little bit different, because during that time, we met in high school. So, we knew each other since we were 14. So, just to let you know the longevity, of things and everything like that. So, when I was 18, I went to the military. So, my first duty station was in Germany. I lived abroad for over 2 years already at the age of 18. So, for me, this living there, uh, acclimating to the systems and, moving through there and everything like that, it really prepared me for when we were getting ready to move, or get ready to have things set up in order for us to be able to move as a family. I had that experience. I was able to, just move around, jump on trains, jump on the highway, uh, move through the streets, and move through cuts, talk to people, learn the language, get really familiar with my settings and my surroundings. And then when we started to make the decision as a family to, move abroad, it just brought up all those things that, I learned back then. And I was able to utilize those things now to, help my family get more
Acclimated here.
acclimated,
Yeah.
in the way we're moving.
That's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, that's wonderful. So before you guys left, what was your mindset to visit, or like just like you was like, no, we're done with this place. We're actually moving.
Yeah, I answer this question.
Oh.
We was ready for everything.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. And leading up to the point to where we was getting ready to leave, we had done so much research. We've talked to so many people. We watched so many videos. We watched testimonies, and we just took notes. And that's what we did. We made sure that whatever situation or whatever, because we knew that it could be an opportunity. It's a unique opportunity for us, but we also knew that anything could happen. We need to be ready and prepared
Yeah.
for anything, just in case we might have to move from where we are.
Right.
Make sure things are structured in a way in which if something do happen, we can go to this place or we can go to this place. And, like I said, it's just the mindset of this knowing before you get over here that you got to be ready for anything and any possible outcome. Especially when you're moving with your family. So
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Just I just want to say that one thing that I'm really grateful and thankful for is that, and of course you guys, because we took we had your course and everything like that, and I've done a couple courses with you all. So just being able, first of all, for anyone who is thinking of making this type of move, one thing that you have to do is you have to actually listen to the people that are here, because we can have a certain I don't know, a certain gaze, like a certain gaze, a certain desire, a certain longing for certain things, because you create things for yourself, right? And you have to be able to listen and understand that, you know, things are going to be different when you get here. You know, I'm grateful because we watched so many videos and did so much certain research, we were kind of able to like break out of the honeymoon stage before we even got here. So there would
Wow.
be no, yeah, I mean, yeah, there would be no like, because we knew that things were going to arise, right? We knew that things were going to arise to test us, to, you know, to make us depressed, to oppress us, whatever. Things are going to come up that you have to deal with. And if we are coming with this, you know, as they say, rose-colored glasses of everything, la 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 la, then when those things happen, you know, you're gonna be like, oh no, yeah, I can't. This is not it. You know, we can't do whatever. So we knew that those things were gonna come. We knew that those thoughts may even come, but we knew beforehand, and we still made the decision to come. You know, so we just knew like, okay, we know, we understand this may happen, so we're gonna have to be ready for this. We know that they're gonna try to do this, so we're gonna have to be ready for this. So it was that type of mindset that we had when we came, and we told the children, like, and yeah, we
Not only
took,
did we do it between ourselves, we prepped our children in order for them to know that, because at the time
right,
they weren't teenagers. You know,
Right.
everything was an idea at the beginning. You know, it wasn't. You know, everything wasn't set up. You know, we just knew that we had to, you know, make the outline and fill in the gaps, and then, you know, like I said, get the information. The information is pivotal. You know, because at the end of the day, you can be out here moving around and not have the info, and then that's when, you know, things can happen. You
right,
know,
right,
you get beat
Yeah.
in the head, or, you know, you can just get, you know, charge the wrong price for something or misinterpreted in a
Yeah.
way
yeah,
in which you know. So these things, you know, we want to instill in our children to make sure that they were ready. And like I said, you know, this not like a yearly process, 6 months. This was years in the making, you know.
right, right,
So yeah, we definitely took our time and made, you know, wisely godly decisions.
right.
Yeah, that's good. So was it hard for your extended family? Did you guys tell them like, hey, we're moving, or was it like hush hush until time was of like right in front of you?
Right. So it's funny because like for me, now his story's a little different or whatever, but for me, I would say in 2020 when I first just even thought about it, it was initially it was going to be Ghana, but you know then they started requiring certain things, so we was like we're not going there.
It was regulated.
Yeah, and so so I started looking into it then, you know, it just I don't know, it just of course, you know, it was talking about land and all this other stuff like that. So the idea of that is what sparked it for me, because at the time in 2020 we were still in Syracuse, New York, and we had all like I said, we had always desire to move and to leave back out again and to like move south into the warm weather. And we want to be able to grow food all year round. Like that was the goal for us anyway, because we, you know, we were caterers and, you know, we work with food and stuff like that. So we wanted to be able to grow our food and, you know, things of that nature. So we just always had the sight of moving somewhere where it was a better climate so that we can do those types of things all year round. So anyway, when I thought about the land, I was like, okay, well, that would be really great. Nah, I never thought about going to Africa. You know, say it was so it piqued the interest then. So I want to say like I probably like maybe said something about it to maybe like two family members or whatever, but it was just kind of like you know, it was like I don't think that they thought that I was like serious, you know. So but once it actually came down to it, we kind of did a lot of stuff but you know, kind of on a hush. Like I mean, there were people who never knew that we even moved to Florida. It's just we just come accustomed to kind of moving in a certain silence and doing certain things in a certain silence because everybody's not going to understand what we're doing. Everybody's not going to agree with what we're doing, but we don't want to let you know other people's like you know opinions start to damper, what we have going on. Yes, we can get advice and things of that nature, but we know the time in which we need to share it, so that we can have laid things out and have some sort of foundation and stability before, we let other people in. So anyway, my family, they weren't super duper excited about it, obviously, because, we had just moved to Florida. So we had just did that move, which was a big move. And, so now here, but so I think they're, it just is what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She says her family, she means her parents. Parents are still here, My
Right.
parents are not here, and like she said, my story's a little bit different. It's just me and my brother, and my brother's in the truth. So at the end of the day, he's like, yeah, well, go on ahead, go do your numbers, go do what you need to go do. You know what I'm saying? Hold it down. So I had already got the green light from my loved ones. They had already gave me that. So it wasn't really like, I needed it because I had that support already. But, like I said, just even talking with her parents, uh, pretty much separating, the grandchildren from the grandparents and everything like that. And, they're older now.
Yeah, and that's another thing. My parents are older. They're 80, getting ready to be 85, and almost getting ready to be 80.
Right.
So they're older, so that gives way a lot. It's another level of something that you may have to think about, especially if you're thinking about moving abroad. With those types of situations, because when you think about being able to honor your parents and being able to provide a certain presence for them, it is a tough thing to really have to think about. It's a lot to really juggle, because you want to do that, you want to honor them, but at the same time you also know that you have a family that you created that you also have to do right by and begin to teach in the way in which they should go.
Right. And now that we've been here for a couple
Yeah.
months, they started to see, what we were trying to tell them in the beginning. Because of course, everybody has this idea of when you move abroad, wherever they tell you on the news or social media or whatever, that's what it is until your feet touch the ground and you start moving through there. And then you understand, like, yeah, then you're able to come back with that report and let them know, like, yeah, this is what we're doing. This is how things is going down, and they're able to get a more understanding. They know that we're safe. The children are safe, and that we're safe. So especially like I said, dealing with older ones or older parents or whatever, you got to give them that
Yeah.
report to make sure that they understand, because they got a lot of questions.
Right.
Let's just be for real. Older people have a lot of questions, and they have detailed questions.
Yeah.
They want to ask you, but they need all the information. They need all the telephone numbers. They're not even on social media, but they need all the social. And you know how this is. Like I said, I ain't got to break it down.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
It's family. And like I said, us moving in the direction that we were trying to move in, like I said, just setting them up, the children, to have an international mindset. You can go to regular school, or you can do this, but I want you to be able to have that mindset to where you can go to school anywhere you want to.
Right.
Life is going to teach you these experiences and stuff like that. You're not going to be able to get this in the classroom setting. And in that classroom setting, I don't even want you learning what you supposed, what their curriculum is in that classroom setting. So,
of course, that's another thing,
right.
It's another battle that you
Right, exactly.
So much.
that you gotta
So much.
go through sometimes,
Man, the struggle.
Yeah.
So it sounds like your daughters, especially since they're a really great resume, we moved to Tanzania when I was this age. We did X, Y, and Z. That's such a strong foundation to set your daughters up on, especially with the fall of the West. I think it's so clear now, like even like Western, leaders are coming out and saying like, yeah, the West is declining. Like people who would typically say, yeah, I'm staying in America, like a lot of white Americans are now look, we going to Spain, we going to Portugal. Like everybody's leaving, which is something different than 2020 when we left. Now in 2025, it's like it's not just a small portion of people. It's like everybody at once was like, all right, time to get out of here.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And that's just another thing, it's just, knowing what you know and knowing that other people don't know what you know. Obviously it's a hard thing to try to explain. So a lot of times it's just you say certain little things
You gotta take
and
action. Yeah.
you just have to move how you move, because it's the information that we have is like you have to be able to, first of all, have ears for it, right? Because that's just another thing. Like it's just certain things we know people don't have the ears for. So it's just like
Yeah, it's hard to get them to hearken.
Yeah, it's hard to get them to hearken. It's hard to get them to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it and why you did it when you did it. And so it's like I'm not trying to convince you of my life. I'm just trying to let you know that this is, what we're doing, type of situation, because it goes, I mean, you all know it goes so much deeper than anything I can say in one sentence. It's like you have to have been sitting in front of information over extended period of time and let things reveal itself to you, to be able to put these pieces into play.
Exactly. And see, that's the whole thing. With my experience, just growing up, they all, my OGs and old heads, they came to us back in the early 80s and 90s and told us that we were the people. They told us, like, yeah, you're pink, stand on that. The Messiah is not white, and the whole thing is just growing up in this, like I said, this is before 2020, just knowing these things and stuff like that, always set in my mind that eventually one day I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to need to get all of this information for myself. At the end of the day, once I went on ahead and started grabbing up the scriptures and going through that rabbit hole, because rabbit hole never ends. You start to realize that certain things are put in place to hinder you, to stumble you, set the trap for you. And at the end of the day, it's up to you to find the Father to get you up out of these situations and help you to navigate through all of these trenches. You know what I'm saying? And get up out of all of this muck and everything that's going on. Uplift your family to the point to where they can go on ahead and try to navigate these things by themselves. So that way, when they're outside of the gate, they know what they need to do.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel like there was a time to try to convince people. I don't think, and then I'll say this: there's a time to convince people. There's a time to take action. To allow the people that you try to convince that, hey, this is real. Like it's no more convincing.
Right.
You got to start acting on your faith. Like it's really, and now this time is, I don't know how to say it. Like it's really not even time
It's bigger than Nino Brown.
It's
bigger than Nino.
If people don't get it, they just don't get it. And just make sure that you and your household, the next generation is going to be set up for this future to come. Because it's a lot that's going on. It's a lot that's going on. And it's been said. The truth is right in front of everybody's face. There's the information is right there. The Most High Spirit is revealing a lot of things to a lot of people, but people, if they don't get it, they just don't get it. There's literally a understanding that people have to wake up to, and some people just never is going to wake up.
Yeah.
So I'm just glad that you guys, got that calling of, hey, I need to do this for the next generation. I know, my parents is a little bit older. I should be taking care of my parents, but look, this next generation, they have to, they can't be stuck like we want.
Right.
It's really bad. it's a just how you guys was just talking about mindset. It's really about the mindset. Like once people realize your mindset is everything, and that's going to allow you to be in a situation that you guys are in and we are outside of America. It's really about the mindset. Nothing
Right.
can stop your mindset from doing what you need to do, and
Right.
just allowing the Most High to use you. So it's
Right.
just a blessing to have you guys on here, because it's just like, dang, it gets to a point where like, dang, it's is there still people moving? Is there still people trying to get out? But
Right.
it is, and it's just like,
Yeah.
man, it's really about the mindset. It's about listening and knowing that the Most High is leading people. So all
Right.
praises that
Right.
the Most High led y'all out.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Because
would you guys
everything
say
dynamic
that
is
you
different.
received a call to leave?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Oh, I'll say it again.
Do you guys feel like the Most High called you guys specifically to leave? Like your faith process, what has that been like since leaving the West?
So, or you?
When I left in '98, I already knew. When I left for the first time as a young man, leaving my own household at the time, my mother was a single parent, like I said, it was just me, my mother, and my brother at the time. I knew before that I was going to leave. I didn't know how I was going to do it. At the time I was like about 15. Once I went on ahead and got signed up for the service, and that gave me the opportunity to leave. Like I said, coming back to the hood, after seeing that, I already knew that it was for me. Like I didn't know how I was going to make it happen, but like I said, I knew that day.
Wow.
Yeah, I want to say that I think it has to do with unsettling, like a feeling, a nagging of feeling that this is for you to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like it can't be ignored. You're always thinking about it. And not to be confused with being anxious about something, but it's just it's just knowing that like you're gonna do this. Like you're going to do this, and being able to embrace the fact that okay, you know this is something that we're not used to doing, but we have the faith that it will work out, because we truly do believe that wherever we are and wherever we go, we're going to be covered by the Most High, obviously, as long as we are showing ourselves righteous in his eyes. So it's like it was just that feeling of knowing that it's gonna happen for us, like, because it was kind of okay. I'll tell you this. Okay. And this is another way in which kind of I knew. But when I went back to Syracuse, New York, right, from DC, I was not happy. I was not happy to be back there. Syracuse is a small city, and it was always dark and gloomy. Those who from Syracuse know exactly what I'm talking about. But from coming from a bigger city and a larger city, it was just like, man, I'm back here, whatever. But of course, we came back because things had to be done. The Most High was doing certain things, in our lives. So it was just a part of it, right? Yeah. And so, I came back, and I came back, I went back to church, my church that I grew up in, things of that nature. And, just went back to doing the normal thing that, I left, when I left. But it was something in me then, right? And I didn't know what it was, but it was something in me then that was telling me you need to break away from the church. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm talking about like the church that I grew up in. Like you're too comfortable there. It's a level of comfortability for you. So, and I hadn't thought about it, but I was just like, yeah, okay. So I started searching out other churches and things of that nature. And then I ended up finally joining another church. We all ended up joining another church, right? But in that process, I heard the Most High telling me, you're going to do a series of breaking away, right? I had no idea what that really meant, but it was just, you're going to do a series of breaking away. You're going to do a series of moves. Now, I didn't know that the moves was the moves that it was going to be, but I couldn't get that out of my head. So, like I said, because breaking away from the church that I grew up in was really, really tough for me to do. It was so tough. And and I did it the right way. I called my pastor and I let him know that, hey, look, I'm going to be, I think it's time for me to, move and do it. So I wanted to do everything the right way or the respectable way. So I did that.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and even in 2020 when we had the lockdown, I even did the same thing with the next pastor that I had. But at this time, I had come into the truth and I had started to have certain questions. And so it was just,
Yeah.
we had a meeting with him and we just let him know, like, listen, these are the questions that we have, you know what I'm saying? And we talked to him and things of that nature. And, and it was just the feeling of just us letting him know that we just cannot, be really in this knowing what we know. So and I did, we did that, and then we ended up moving to Florida not too long ago, and and now here. So when I think about all of that, it's not like the signs and the word was not there, because
It's definitely there.
yeah, so it was just, I had to know, because it was the drops, the seeds were always being dropped.
And for me, it was the breadcrumbs, because during all of this time, like I said, we in the neighborhood, we already know this, but in the neighborhood, we don't always pick up our Bible and read it. And, I knew that during the time around 2020 and around 2019 is when I started to pick up my Bible, before everything happened. So at the end of the day, now I'm reading, and of course, finding out, the things that I need to find out, saying through the scriptures. I really, it changed for me, because just like she said, we're going to these churches and stuff like that. Like I said, I have a different mindset about it. But for me, during that time, I knew that, I was going to be the one that was going to be in the position to have to read the Bible to my children. I didn't want anybody else to do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I needed to
Yeah.
go on ahead and put myself in. You gotta think, I was still scrambling. I was still running around scrambling them and still working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, because I had CDL, making money and all this, maybe doing the things that I need to do to provide for my family. But I knew during that time that this other provision that I need to have for them, that I had on the back. Like I said, I wanted to obtain all the information. I never had the time to sit down and start picking up these breadcrumbs, start getting to this loaf, start getting to this meatloaf, and start getting to the meat and potatoes. And like I said, I didn't want to be the one to, while we were going through these transitions, and knowing that we're getting ready to move, knowing that we're getting ready to be in different places and stuff like that. Like I said, I had to, make sure that I put my general hat on. Let me get to these scriptures, so that way, like I said, we know how to move through all of these things. So,
Right.
that was the biggest part for me. So I already knew that the Most High had it. He already had it set up already.
And
all praises.
yeah, and just really quickly, it's funny because a lot of times, you'll a lot of people will wonder why some of our men are not in the church. And it's like, when you do come into a certain truth, you will understand, because it's like the Most High, I can't explain it, but he didn't want them in there because he needed to prepare them for what he needed to prepare them for. And if they would have gone under certain things,
Right.
It would just have been different, because of course he came to church and everything like that, but I can tell that it was never like
Right.
100%.
Yeah, it was just like he said, he knew that he was going to need to be the one to to do it.
Right.
Exactly. So, talking about church, have you guys been to church in Tanzania? Because we did. We went to a seven-day Adventist church when we first arrived.
Did we?
Yeah.
I went.
I don't think he.
I think I went to a 7 day. I don't remember that one. I went to the church.
The children came too.
To the church.
Yeah, we had food and stuff.
At the church.
Yeah, it was a 7-day Adventist church.
I don't remember that.
Like,
where was it at?
We got to spread the word.
What?
That is funny.
Yeah. So yeah, no.
But look, we
To
only
answer
went
your
one.
question, no, we just do Shabbats every Saturday, or
Yeah.
you know, the lunar cycle, or you know, at the end of the day, like I said, we're still attaining a lot of information on how we're gonna be doing the Shabbats, and of course, we celebrate the feast days and everything like that. But yeah, now you know, like I said, every moment that we get to try to go over the scriptures, yeah, I'm the one sitting there with my Bible, breaking it down,
That's good.
getting on everybody's nerves while I'm
That's
doing
good.
it.
So, could you guys kind of compare your first month in Tanzania to current your current month in Tanzania? Is there a difference in like relationship wise? Difference in the faith in the Most High, really? Because I know once we moved to Africa, our faith level kind of increased. Our relationship, our trust increased it with the Most High and everything. So could y'all talk on that a little bit?
You want me to go?
Yeah, you can go.
So I would say, obviously the faith level is always at test. It really has no choice for us but to increase. One thing I have to definitely give my husband credit for is that, and honestly, I feel because he knows he has to, but he's always optimistic about everything. About where we are, what we're gonna do. Just like he's always the one to say, "Hey, look, it'll get done." But and I'm the one I'm like, on the computer, I'm researching this, trying to figure out this. Is and I think that's sometimes could be the role with a lot of male and female, men, women, whatever. But I'm more results. Like, okay, like when, okay, all right, what's the schedule? Like, when is this gonna happen? And all these types of things.
Right.
So I mean, and even it's something as simple as the internet working, like, because right now, hopefully, I don't know what this live looking like right now, but I know our internet was acting a fool, right?
Exactly.
But even the fact of not having the internet, okay, I don't have the internet, I can't look this up, I can't do this sort of thing. So it just puts you in a place where you just got to be like, all right, well, I guess I can't, I just whatever, type of thing. So I think that has definitely put me in that place to where I have to be more okay with what I don't have. Um,
Yeah.
and just know and understand that whatever moment that I'm in, it's where the Most High has me at. He has me here for whatever reason. If I'm supposed to stop and maybe think, or if I'm supposed to stop and read, or whatever the situation may be, I'm gonna have to start learning how to take those clues,
Yeah.
and be okay with that time frame of whatever it is that I'm going through. So yeah, I mean, obviously we've come to come a little better obviously now and here in the 7th month, versus the first month. First month, of course, we experienced not having any water, things of that nature. I was just like, oh man, we need to be prepared, and so it was just getting us to get to where, okay, we know now, let's just always have couple jugs of water just in case, what I'm saying, there's no water, or
Yeah.
it's just learning how to be what I'm saying, prepared,
Right.
have provisions in place.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world, just prepare.
Right. And for me, it's a little bit different because,
That's
like I said,
good.
just
That's
growing
good.
up in the era that I grew up in, just knowing that you couldn't expect certain things when you were that age, because you might get smacked up for your expectations. You know what I'm saying? Especially dealing with adults and everything like that. You were in a child's place, so you knew that that you didn't you wasn't going to ask for certain things. You knew that you didn't need to expect certain things. And coming back here to this time, it's like a time lapse. You're able to get back into that mindset and that mind frame, because at the end of the day, you might be expecting for something to go down, or you're waiting and you're going to still be waiting. And there's no reason to be
Right.
upset about it. You know, just know that you're going to just have to operate differently. You have to move differently. You know,
Right.
I knew like the first month that we were here, it's the same thing. And, you know, my wife could tell you, like, even when we would go on vacation or anywhere that we go, the first thing I do is I get on my square and then, you know what I'm saying, I broaden my square. So that way, you know, I know exactly how to get around, you know, how to navigate, you know, oh, this little, like I said, I go outside and I orientate myself around my surroundings. Like I said, I go on one square and then I make the square bigger. If I was walking through city blocks, I would go 1 block, 3 blocks, 3 blocks, 5 blocks, and walk that whole square just to make sure that, you know, because like I said, that's my mindset. You know, here, you know, it's the same mindset. Get out here, get myself oriented, you know, talk to the people, get it, you know, let the locals see me. They already see me because I got the fitted hat on. You know, I stand out. You know, I got a little moxie and bravado about me when I walk through the neighborhood and stuff. You know, they know that there's somebody different that's out there, and I'm not. You know, I'm just gonna show you the peace and blessings. What's going on, Ak? How you doing? You know, or VP Kaka. You know, give you the head nod. You know, if you know, like yeah, you know, real G's in the building, man. You know, because they need to see that from us coming over here. Because if you look like a lick, yeah, best believe it's gonna go down. You know, they need to see. And like I said, I'm in a house with 4 other females.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I always got to make sure that even when I'm behind the gate or outside the gate, I got to govern myself accordingly. They need to see that. You know, because you know, like I said, we don't necessarily need any issues or anything like that going down, but it can be a level of understanding that they see it from afar. Like, oh yeah, that's Rasta. They call me Rasta out here, or that's Rasta. He out here with his family. They respect that. You know what I'm saying? So
And it's also good too, like if you're thinking obviously of coming here or when you do come here, you have to get out and just like you said, you got to know what's around you. You got to know the local store right there. You got to know the Duca, which is the store. Get your potatoes and your tomatoes and everything else from right there. Yes, there's shoppers. You can go to the grocery store, but you got to get out and let them see you. Let them see that you're integrating into the neighborhood.
right.
So I think that is really, really important. Take walks, certain things so that they can begin to, just know, that you're there, that you're there. And not only that you're there, but like you're there, like you're not just in the house or, locked up or whatever. Even though not to say that you got to be out at all times of night, you know what I'm saying? But just, those little things, those normal things that we do, like going to the farm, the fruit stand, just things like that. Speaking, doing your best to speak in the language, don't expect them to say something to you in English. Like, no, I need Viazi or, Moga. You know what I mean? Like, you just say those things because they really do appreciate the fact that you are learning the language and you are,
becoming more friendly.
Right.
Exactly. And that's the difference between the first month and the 7th month. You know, this first month you're doing this and you're trying to figure it out. Now we 7 months in. I feel like I can just pull up right to any store or anybody. I don't necessarily might have to start a conversation or whatever. Like I say, it can just be eye contact. Hey, what's going on? Peace, blessings. You know what I'm saying? And this, like I said, the way you carry yourself out here and the way you interact with people, like I said, they're able to notice your character and stuff like that. And you're able to do that with these people and stuff like that too. They own businesses and they have families they have to go back to, and you just want to be there to support them and make these transitions a lot easier for you and your family and your loved ones.
Relationships is big here in Africa. That's probably, I'll say relationships is more than currency here in Africa. You gotta have relationships. So it's good that you go out there, you go to the local shop, the mom and pop shop and stuff like that. Get your fruits and vegetables, and because I'm pretty sure you guys experienced it too. You probably got a higher price 7 months ago, but now the price is regular, huh?
Right. Yeah, because you
not
You
necessarily.
begin to know, but
Not
you begin to
necessarily,
know.
but yeah.
You begin to know and know
Right.
what should be charged. But
Right.
I will say, yeah, well,
Yeah, like I said, we were preparing for everything.
Yeah.
Before we got over here,
And
we already knew. Like,
yeah.
And this, like I said, this is.
Well, we knew it was going to happen. We
Right,
knew
we
it was
knew,
going to
yeah.
happen. Just, I mean, even you guys said, "Hey, look, you know, they're going, you know,
Right.
make you know, you're going to have to barter. It's just a part of what has to happen." But we did have, like when we were going to the store, we were staying with a family, so they had a dada, you know, obviously that went to the store when we first got here.
Okay.
So you know, we kind of knew the prices for things, so that was a good thing, obviously, you know, just to have that inside knowledge, so that when we do go out there, you know, we can kind of have the idea, like, wait a minute, hold on, I know that for carrots, potatoes, tomatoes, and a pepper cost about this much when she would bring it back. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. No. Yes, anything.
That's so good. You know, something you said earlier, I want to circle back to that just had my mind like rolling on this track was you were talking about how when you came into the truth, you started to basically deconstruct like these church mindsets. And I was thinking about how, wow, like you left one system, but then to also go out and physically leave that Babylonian system. It's almost like a pattern that I can see that the Most High is doing, because you find that a lot of people who do travel are people that believe in the Bible, that have come into the truth, and that have this undoing of like, hey, they're like waking up and figuring out, oh, no Christmas. Who are in the truth and have the spirit of the Messiah and are pleading the blood of Yahushua and keeping his word and keeping his commands. I think it almost makes it easier for those people when they come outside of America, because the scripture that also comes to mind, I think it's in Psalm 68, where the Most High says, I created the whole world and the fullness thereof. I think that's like the main unfair advantage that we have as believers, is like we already understand that we are in the world but not of the world.
Right.
And so it's not this big deterrent to go to another country, to go across the world, because all of it's home, all of it's earth, and the New Jerusalem is going to come one day. But at the end of the day, it's best to be near, or at least this was my mindset before we came abroad, it's best to be near the people that are most oppressed on earth, because at the end of the day, the people the Messiah is coming back for, he's coming back for the most oppressed. I saw a quote, I think it was yesterday, it was like, the Most High, he's not coming back to get the colonizer and be like, well done, thank you for colonizing all my people. Like, that's not going to be what happens. And that's why we can see the clear decline of the West like that, just from that spiritual standpoint.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. Just to say this about that, some of us have a unique position. And, I talk about this a lot, it's like I said, when you navigate through the trenches, some of us, when we come up out of the trenches, we get the opportunity to stay up out of it. Some of us, when we come out of the trenches, we got to go back in because we know we got loved ones and people that we trying to get up out of it. So, like I said, for me, and, my wife can tell you, that I've always said this, it's coming out of Babylon, and knowing that, like I said, we out of this, but I know that eventually I'm gonna have to go back for my loved ones, you know what I'm saying? Because, they might not have the resources or, a way in which, because, like I said, it's always limitations and snares and stuff that's out there that's, harboring our people, child support, charges, felonies and stuff. They're not able to get passports and everything like that. They have a way in which, but, the legal ramifications and stuff like that. So, just to be able to, like I said, for me, I know that my work is not done yet. You know what I'm saying? Even though I'm outside of it, I give my family the opportunity to live and everything like that outside of it. And they know that eventually they might have to go back in there. And, be that super underagent, operate behind enemy lines and get our loved ones up out of there. So, like I said, that's my mindset. That's what I'm trying to instill in my family. Because at the end of the day, this is a legacy. This is going to have to continue on this past my lifetime, past you guys' lifetime. We'll always have to, put ourselves in a position to where, like I said, it's good for some of us to get up out of there. And hopefully, they can maintain and do what they need to do when they get out of the system. Like I said, for some of us, we know that we got unfinished business.
But the key to that is that when you're out of it, you have to do the work in order to be able to go back in.
Right.
Because you have to have your mind and your actions in a certain place to where, okay, I may have to go back here for a year, 2 months, or whatever, for a certain thing. But it's a difference, because once you wake up to certain things and you pull yourself out of certain things, you're able to look, at things. You're able you should be able to have a certain type of new strategy if you have to go back into anything. You now should be able to look at things with totally different eyes, right? And know that if you're going back in anywhere, it's on assignment. It's not to get comfortable. Like, you don't go back into the lion's den because you want to take a nap.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or you want to have a bet. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not, no, you have to get out of that, because I think a lot of people, when they go back for those things, the conveniences, and these things. So you have to be able to say, okay, Most High, what is it? You know what I'm saying? Is what do I need to do here? And then he will give you the strategy and the plan, and then that's what you go back and you work that. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's just for those for that situation, you know what I mean? So yeah, but everything has to be strategic, with what you're doing and how you're doing it. We're not just, yes, we're living life, and we're living it up and, having fun, of course, because we are to enjoy life, but I know for myself, I've gotten out of always trying to chase a certain type of success, because I know that my mindset at the time was not the right mindset. Like, I'm not chasing success now because I want to have the big house and the car and be able to do whatever I want. I'm just chasing success now, what I deem to be successful, which is knowing my scripture, knowing my word, living a righteous life so that I can endure to the end, okay? Because I am not yet saved. I am not saved until the end. You have to renew your mind daily. And we have to know and understand that this is a daily process. You have to die to flesh on a daily basis, So, but and don't get caught up. And my one thing to everyone, I would say, please understand that things, the setup of this world, the agenda of this world has been going on for hundreds of years. You cannot think or believe that you have not been lied to. You just cannot think that way. You have to be able to have the ears and to understand that if something is revealed to you, don't just throw it away and be like, oh, that can't be that. No. Wisdom is knowing and understanding that, having that discernment to know and understand, well, let me just look into this. Because when you do come into the truth, you will realize, when you read the Bible again, or when you read the scriptures again, you will realize this was so plain. Why did we make it something else?
Right.
You know why? We didn't make it someone else. The people before us made it someone else, and they told us that this is what it was. And we believed it, because why would they lie? Our parents taught us certain things. Why would they lie? Why would they teach us this? Because it was taught to them. The history of Mind Control, Truth Unedited, y'all. If y'all have not seen that series, watch that series, because that will put so many things in perspective. Like, we are not, if someone is trying to tell you and get you to wake up out of certain things, it is not because they're saying you're stupid. It's not because they're saying you're dumb. It is just because they're saying that the enemy has come to deceive the whole world, and that's exactly what he did. You have to believe it. You have scriptures that tell you exactly what it is, and you won't believe it because you would rather love a lie. You have to come up out of that. And it doesn't matter what other people think. So I just want to say that.
So true. That's such a good note to end the live on. That's powerful.
Yeah, I would definitely say, just waking up to the truth. You got to know everything was a lie. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like, that's exactly what you just said. Waking up to the truth, knowing everything that you was taught was a lie, you always got to question it. So, yeah, all praise to the Most. Yeah, all praise to the Most High. For real. Yes. But do you guys have to say anything as we are ending the live? Anything to motivate the people, to inspire them, to encourage them, maybe to get out of there, or just whatever you got to say?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I would say, first, real quick, that I mean, you just have to put yourself in the place to be able to listen to what is being told to you, and that's obviously through the Most High. Listen to how you feel about certain things, because may start to have a question. Don't ignore that. If you start to question something, don't ignore it. Don't have anyone make you think that you can't question that. You can't think that, because the Most High may be trying to drop something in your spirit for you to research. You have to study to show yourself approved. So my nugget would be to say, if certain things are going on that you have a question about, okay? Because I'm talking to the ones who I believe the Most High has to wake up, because we know that everybody is not going to. But if you are that one, he's probably already putting some things in your spirit, in front of you, that you have start to kind of question. So what I'm saying is, act on that question, pray on it, and then look into what's being said. Don't think that it's something that's so or don't think that you are so smart, that it's something, it can't go over my head, like, just listen to what's being said, because I guarantee you it's the Most High that wants to wake you up and to show you his truth. So you have to be able to have the ears for that and the eyes for that, so that wherever he has you, whatever assignment he has you on, that you're able to listen and you're able to fulfill that. Because really, that's the only work that is going to last. Whatever he has for you to fulfill is what should be your main goal, not what society is telling us that we need to chase after. So that would be my thing for it. And then obviously, listen to the people that are here, listen to the people that have done it, and know and understand that it's not going to be magical for you. Don't think that, oh, well, I don't think that's going to happen for me. No, you have to be able to listen and prepare for everything that people are telling you that have lived the life. So that would be my thing.
Yeah. For me, just having 45 years of experience on this earth, a lot of wisdom and a lot of discernment. And I'm just gonna keep it this real simple. Just make sure you understand and overstand this. People, brothers and sisters, stay sucker free in the land of lollipops. That's all you gotta do. Stay sucker free, man.
Yep.
Stay sucker free in the land of lollipops, man. It's a lot of lollipops out here, man.
Don't be one of them.
Yeah, don't be one of them.
Don't acclimate to what
Don't be a freaking
everything
dumb-dumb.
else. Right.
Plain and simple.
Don't be a dum-dum.
Come on, man.
You may have to be that red dot,
Right,
in a sea full of gray.
Exactly.
So.
Amen.
Simple advice.
That's so true. That is such a good note to leave the live on. I think a lot of people who are listening are inspired, hopefully feel encouraged, feel like they have options. Hopefully they also feel like that they can hear And do you want to say anything?
Yeah, I say it's time. It's time to not play with the Most High, and just look. Everything that's happening right now, it's happening for a reason. It's supposed to happen, and it's just gonna get worse. So just you gotta learn how to accept truth too. That's why I'm just so blunt, because it's like it's not time to be. It's not time to be a lollipop. You get what I'm saying?
You're a sucker, man. Don't be no sucker, man.
Right.
Say it out with your chest, man. Don't be no sucker, man. Plain and simple, man. No matter where your feet is on the
Plain and
earth, man.
simple. It's very simple. It's very simple.
All praises.
It's very all praise to the Most High,
Yes.
guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you all for having
Yes,
us.
we appreciate you.
Yes.
You're welcome.
And,
Y'all go follow Be Limitless. We will put their YouTube channel in the description. Go follow them, subscribe, check them out. It will encourage you on your journey. Shalom, shalom.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shalom, family.
Shalom,
Shalom,
everybody. Oh.